Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio, your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Compassion Project. My name is Dr. Danielle Lord. I am your hostess in a show in which we engage in conversations, examine trauma, how it's all around us in its varying forms and shapes, and how we can move beyond it through compassion and igniting a compassion evolution. So I'm very excited today to have my guest join me, ALICIA Alexander, where we're going to talk about her book on forgiveness, the neuroscience of authentic appreciation, and leadership in the workplace. So please join me in welcoming ALICIA to the show.
Dr. Lord, it's great to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Oh, well, I'm so glad you could join me. So just letting any of our new listeners know that this is completely unscripted and sometimes I stumble over my own words. Bear with us in the conversation here today, and please call me Danielle, ALICIA. So thank you again for being here. I think, as I've mentioned in previous shows, I think that there's this trauma that is all around us. And, we oftentimes associate trauma with this significant event of personal, emotional, mental, even physical pain. But in fact, I think it's very insidious. And I work under the definition of trauma as being something that is prolonged, repeated instances of interpersonal aggressions or incidents. And so when we think about trauma in that nature and we think about it becoming very systemic, to me, compassion, self-compassion, which I think is different than self-care, forgiveness, authenticity, great leadership, these are things that are so important in our time. And I think this is really probably our most compelling, significant thing that we are grasping with as humans at this particular point in time. So I'm very excited to have you on the show. So with that, I want to open it up and let folks hear about you. How did you come into this space? And tell us a little bit about you and your work, ALICIA.
Well, thank you, Danielle. I began my course of wanting to bring completeness into the work culture because of my own experience. I am a doctoral student at Grand Canyon University, and I am studying organizational leadership with an emphasis on organizational development, qualitative research. My humble beginnings began in my early 20s with a major corporation, which was an excellent corporation. It's changed since then in a different form, but it's still around. And what I loved about it was that I was helping people achieve certain statuses that they desired. For my first experience with the corporate world, it was challenging because once I got through training and was actually enjoying the job, I would hear certain negativity from people that I thought I could respect. And I said to myself, if I ever get to the place where I can help work cultures be effective and make it so that the staff can enjoy their work environment, I would
Mhm.
do so. And that's where I am today. Being able to bring authentic appreciation, workplace forgiveness, using neuroscience in leadership and in management, parts of components of organizational excellence. And that's what
Mhm.
I focus on, organizational excellence.
Oh, I love it. We have a lot of commonality in our work. So my PhD is in leadership theory. So, and my whole career has been in the field of organizational development, with a lot of that same emphasis as you, Alicia, which is how do we create this space in our organizations where people are free to bring their whole self and can experience that authenticity and not have to be somebody else and be in that space of discomfort, which I think is another form of trauma. I have to be somebody else today. I cannot be my own true self. So, wow, that's fascinating work. And congratulations on your doctoral journey. It is quite a process, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I'm
Yeah.
55% of the way done. So
Nice.
I'm grateful for that experience.
Well,
I
congratulations. I did qualitative research as well. So
okay, great, great. I
yeah,
love it. But I
it's
want to
go ahead.
sorry. I want to extend an invitation to your listening audience, especially those who are connected to me on LinkedIn, for an event, more than an event, but it starts February 6th, and it's called the Executive Roundtable. It's a place where, I've heard it said that there's no place for you to voice your concerns about work. And that's my focus is organizational excellence. I want to offer what I call the Executive Roundtable. It is beginning February 6th, monthly, from 11:30 a.m. to 1 o'clock p.m. on Thursdays, the first Thursdays of every month, beginning February 6th. So you now have a place where you can voice your concerns about work. And being a SHRM member myself, I understand workplace incivility as Johnny Taylor talks about it. He was the CEO of SHRM. And so I'm offering the Executive Roundtable to be able to not only give strategic information, but to offer membership where you can receive strategic benefits.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you for bringing that up and letting the listening and watching audience know about the roundtable. I find it fascinating that we have been telling organizational leaders for 60 years, probably, if we look at the history of moving out of scientific management and into what we know true, effective, good leadership to be, that the current way in which we approach leadership is not working. We've got PhDs and PhD and doctoral candidates and experts in multidisciplinary fields saying the current way is not working. And yet we're still stuck in this strange paradigm of workplace trauma that exists. So this is so needed. We've got to find some ways to give folks some voice. So that's awesome that you're doing that. And I think it's really important. When I wrote my last book, this time last year, employee engagement was at 39%. And I just saw a recent article that came out and said, oh gosh, it's even lower now. It's at 31%. So we have a really disengaged workforce out there. And that to me is just so disheartening, because we've got folks who take that frustration, that anger, they take it back to their families, and their families get frustrated, and then they take it out into the larger community. So how do you see forgiveness in the workplace helping to address some of these things? And are you getting people saying, I am super interested in this, we need this? Share a little bit about your book and your experience around forgiveness in the workplace.
Well, my book, the book on forgiveness, is an anthology of 27 different women, including myself, who tell their experience about different forms of forgiveness. And it is on Amazon. My personal story has to do with learning how to forgive at an early age. It's not specific to work, but what I have found is that if you have issues personal issues, yes, they do tend to leak out of work, and people won't understand why you're feeling that way. So accepting forgiveness for yourself personally first begins within yourself, and then reaches out to your closer circle of influence, and ultimately your workplace circle of influence. So once we gain a good understanding of how to let things go and how to forgive ourselves, we can appreciate and value others. In the workplace, when we talk about workplace forgiveness, there are six different forms of workplace forgiveness that I teach in organizational excellence. And that's not the only component of organizational excellence. As I shared before, it has to do with neuro leadership, neuro management, authentic appreciation, and workplace forgiveness. So having those elements of organizational leadership and excellence in the work culture is very important to having a cohesive and productive work culture.
Boy, I couldn't agree more. Going back to that authentic leadership as well. I've seen in my career, so most of my career in organizational development has been around leadership development. And I always find that somebody comes into the leadership development space and they say, I want to be this person. I want to be just like them because they've been deemed successful to that individual, right? And they try to be somebody else. And I think it's a travesty on so many levels, right? You are a unique person, which is why my business is called Archetype. So you are a unique person working in a unique environment, surrounded by more unique individuals. Why wouldn't you allow for that uniqueness and that own special brand of you to show up rather than trying to emulate somebody else? So I love that. The other thing that you said that was so powerful to me was forgiving yourself and letting go of the past. How have you seen, and so help us connect, or for our listeners, connect to this idea of forgiveness in the brain, that neuro aspect of things, rewiring the brain and the neurocircuitry reallocation. How does forgiveness, letting go of the past, help us move forward into the present?
Oh, absolutely. Personally, I can say for myself that learning how to forgive has opened up my soul, which is your mind, will, and emotions, to be able to interact with others without feeling shame, without feeling hurt. You let all of that shame and hurt go to be able to communicate effectively to others. Like I said, first your personal circle of influence, and ultimately your workplace and social circle of influence, without feeling that freedom, if you will. You stifle yourself, you feel frustrated, you feel alone. And because of these frustrated isolation, there are many people who ultimately demise themselves, whether it's physical demise or emotional demise, or ultimately escaping the present circumstances, if you will, because they can't communicate what they're feeling. Once you learn how to forgive yourself, you're open and you're free to communicate those emotions and what your present circumstance is. And that's highly important, especially in the workplace.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think the idea of forgiving yourself, self-forgiveness has been one of the most liberating things that I have ever done personally, is to say, just leave it in the past and focus on the present. So I so completely agree. How can folks find your book? Just very quickly, Alicia.
We are on Amazon, the book on forgiveness. The editors are Dr. Paran Somani and Martha Davison. On the cover, there are pictures of all of the authors. We're all co-authors in this book on forgiveness. Again, the book, the name of the title is The Book on Forgiveness.
The Book on Forgiveness. Okay. All right. That's fantastic. I love it. What else are you seeing in terms of leadership right now? Being there we go. Thank you to our producer, Dr. Jacqueline, for pulling that up. I love it that you've got all of those women on there too who are sharing their own experience. So what else, Alicia, are you seeing in the workplace right now as you're working with organizations? Are we seeing a shift towards moving towards more kind of enlightenment, authenticity, or are you experiencing what I'm seeing is people are still kind of stuck in this whole idea of we can't be authentic, we can't be our full selves, we can't forgive?
Follow the words of Johnny Taylor, who is the CEO of SHRM, Society of Human Resource Management. We have since the pandemic, we've gone through different stages.
Mm-hmm.
In the pandemic, there was a little reaching out, concern about your fellow worker, your neighbor, society at large. But since we are now out of the pandemic, we are taking a step back and becoming more focused on self. Hence, there's an increase of workplace instability. On a daily basis in the United States, there's at least, I would say 71 million acts of instability that concerns disagreements, conflicts, aggression in the workplace. So what we need to regain is that concern for our fellow co-worker, our fellow neighbor, ultimately the society at large. I know we've had a new administration, and because of this new administration, there are certain sectors who are anticipating change. And we all believe for good change, but nonetheless, it is change. And sometimes change is a hard pill to swallow. I think that to capitalize on the current stats of instability in the workplace, organizational excellence is a solution to bring cohesive, interpersonal relationships to a good place in the workplace, in the work environment, the work culture. When we talk about neuro leadership, neuro management, and authentic appreciation, along with workplace forgiveness, we're talking about creating a workplace and a work environment of safety, of open communication, of being able to talk to one another with civility instead of instability.
Very well said. Yeah, and I think what you outlined as you started to share in answering the previous question was exactly what I refer to in this kind of trauma-based experience that we're living. It's repeated, it's prolonged, it's incidents of kind of interpersonal aggressions, attacks, incidents. So very well summed up. I really love that. And yeah, it's so necessary and so needed in our organization. You know what I find amazing is oftentimes we see leaders just with this flippant attitude of, well, we're not going to promote you after all, or we're going to replace your position and you just need to leave now and you've been let go. And it's just this kind of I don't care approach, or it's, well, it is what it is. And, we find folks who have mortgages and they're putting their kids through school, or they just got a new car, or they just got a new house. And this environment or this attitude of, I just don't care about you is really awful. So I would love that. I'd love to see that change. And I think you're right. I think that was the differentiator with COVID, is that we all experienced something together at the same time. And we had no other option but to say, wow, how are you today? How are you doing? How is everything going for you? as we're all experiencing this together. But once that kind of collective experience diminished and we're back into this kind of insular me type of approach. So I think COVID was really a game changer. And I think we're seeing now organizations saying, well, you just have to come back to work now and you just have to deal with it. And sorry that you have the long commute again, and you're going to diminish time with family and shift the work-life balance component and all of that. I think that's where people are really pushing back in the workplace. So
I agree, because, you know, when it started changing back, there was a lot of resistance. The Great Resignation, you know, people wanted to branch out on their own, but not everyone can do that. And so we need to employ authentic appreciation. And I give credits to Dr. Gary Chapman and Dr. Paul White. The 5 Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace is their book, and it details how we express and receive authentic appreciation. We talk about, you know, words of affirmation, quality time, acts of service, tangible gifts, and physical touch, appropriately done and respecting boundaries in the place of work. We have to recognize not everybody is a cookie cutter person in their role. We have emotions, we have feelings, and we have to communicate effectively one to another.
Yeah, I so appreciate that you brought that up. And that's why I love doing work with personality and temperament, is so that people can say, oh, wow, Alicia is different. I am different from Alicia. Alicia is different from me. We're all different from one another. And so how do we approach those gifts and appreciation and language and all those other ways in a way that's meaningful for you, not just for me? Right. I think too, the other thing is I heard you mentioning those ways of appreciation through touch, through connection, through words. It makes me think about the brain chemicals. So again, going back to the neuroscience, right? So we have what's kind of colloquially known as the daily dose, which is dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. And those are the 4 happy brain chemicals that we produce. And ironically, if we don't have those, it actually mimics depression. And so that's why we have to have those words of affirmation, the handshake, even the hug, right? I'm a hugger, so I'm always going in for the hug. The spaces where we can connect with one another at a really personal level. So those things are so powerful. And that's how we create meaningful change and we reshape the brain, is through those instances of the daily dose and making sure that people get that dose of happy brain chemicals. So
absolutely, we address the hug in the 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace, because there's certain cultures that can't accept the hug except for their significant others. We always say, yes, we acknowledge people are huggers, but at the same time, we want to respect people's boundaries.
Absolutely.
And not feel like they're being aloof or want to be estranged from the person, but respect their boundaries in a way, finding out what is acceptable touch to their culture.
Yes.
I know that the acceptable, quote unquote, ways of demonstrating physical touch in the workplace is a good firm handshake, a pat in the back, a fist bump, and a high five. So we stay away from the hug because of boundaries, but we acknowledge that people do like to hug.
Yeah, and I appreciate that you brought that up, that, you know, not everyone does like to hug. So it reminds me of a video that I've seen, I think Facebook or LinkedIn or somewhere, where there's a teacher, I think like a 1st or a 2nd grade teacher. And so he has a chart on his wall And it's the kids point to how they'd like to have a physical interaction. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's super cute because it's like, no, I want a hug. And it's amazing how many kids point to and want the hug. So, but there's definitely other ways to express that physical touch as well. So
I want to support that by saying there are a couple of cute videos where even the teachers like kind of have the children come in a line and they'll give them exactly what they want: a hug, a high five, a pat on the back, whatever the child wants. That's what the teacher does, and it's so cute to watch it because seeing the interaction with the teacher and the children.
Yeah. And what a fantastic way to get greeted every morning, right? When you walk into the classroom.
Absolutely.
Imagine if we walked into the workplace that way. We could change the world.
Might be a novel way to start the day of work.
Oh, I agree. So I want to shift gears a little bit and go back to this idea of forgiveness and starting with forgiving self. The world is experiencing something really interesting right now with kind of the 30-something generation. And I don't know if you've experienced this at all, but we've got this in generation. I'm not sure if it's the I'm Gen X. So it must be the millennials maybe, where they are putting really solid, firm boundaries around parental relationships. And saying, well, you did this to me when I was a child, and so I can't forgive you for that. And if you want to continue a relationship with me, you have to live up to these qualifiers or this kind of set of conditions. Do you have thoughts on that? I mean, are you experiencing that? And how do you see that degree of qualification or restrictions inhibiting, kind of personal growth? How does that show up in the workplace?
Well, for me personally, I have a Gen Y and I have a millennial as children, adult children. And so connecting with them, communicating with them, especially my millennial, I find that the culture has changed. Being able to forgive needs to be worked on. It's something that, yes, they acknowledge it, but can they put it into practice? It needs to be worked on.
Mm-hmm. Where do you think that comes from? Where do you think that began? Where are the roots around that? Do you have any ideas?
The roots of it began because there's the lack of connections, genuine connections. I mean, you can go to a festival or a party but how well are you connecting? And since the pandemic, those kind of social outlets have come to just texting on the phone. You'll meet up every so often, but it's so much texting and so much social media that they're not really connecting in a way that's meaningful.
Yeah, I read something not long ago where it said that whole generation no longer needs the human connection because they're getting their connections from their phone. And I found that fascinating and very sad as well, to think that if that's the only connection that they're getting is something through an electronic device, boy, we've got some work to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've got some work to do. So we have just a few minutes left of time. Alicia, how can folks find you? I know that our producer, Dr. Jacqueline, has put some information up previously as well, but share again how folks can find you. LinkedIn, your website.
Yeah, I can be reached at 401-601-3207. That's my cell phone, and I do use the cell phone often myself. But also my LinkedIn. I am very active on LinkedIn, and my website is makeadifferenceconsulting.com.
Love it. And I will affirm that you are very active on LinkedIn. I think that's how we found each other. So
Yes, that's right.
So I guess there is hope for meaningful connections through social media after all.
I think it comes from the individual being able to have a desire to connect.
Yeah.
As long as
Yes.
that desire is there, it can happen. Social media is a good medium for receiving information, but also getting to know a person as the person desires to do so.
I love that. I love that. Well, I'm excited to grab a copy of your book. So I'll have to take a look at that and read about the power of forgiveness. And I think there is so much power in that. But like everything else, it really does begin with us and forgiving ourselves first. So for making meaningful connections. So please, yeah, go ahead.
I want to lessen the trauma of reading my story. My story it's called The Power to Forgiveness Through Faith. And I start my story with explaining that my brother, my sister, and I were latchkey kids. And we learned to respect authority because we have a good mother, but she was a single mother. And so we were home a lot by ourselves, and a respectable authority man came to our house, I thought as a child, to visit us, to check on us and see how we were doing, because they didn't know that my mom worked 3 to 11:30. But that's not what happened. He actually molested me. And that's how I began the story, to show how I learned to forgive and how I let that situation go instead of letting it shape me for the rest of my life. I know that there's been so many adults who look back on their lives and say, that's what happened to me, the Me Too generation, as some people call it. But we can, as adults, not look back on it and feel shame or depressed about it. But we can forgive that hurt and live our lives successfully. That's what I'm doing. And I just wanted to share about my book.
Oh, I love it. Wow, what a powerful story. Thank you for sharing that. And I apologize that I didn't ask you earlier to share, if you wanted to, about your own experience. So yeah, I think, again, just the power of that forgiveness and forgiving that child, right? Even though the child within us as well, because I think, as you mentioned, there is oftentimes a lot of guilt and shame that comes with that. So how do we forgive both the individual who perpetrated an event upon us, but also how do we forgive ourselves? So with that, we talked a little bit earlier at the show, this idea of differentiating between self-care and self-compassion. So we might be beating the same. Now I'm running into this idea of violent language, right? So I hate to say beating a dead horse, but we might be beating the same bush here. But how do folks provide themselves with self-compassion from your perspective?
Just being able to let it go, and I mean, yes, we use certain words that are not as effective as others. Maybe a curse word, maybe a negative connotative word. But as we come to understand that those are not effective words for us to use, and we try to change our language, we can change our present state of mind. And a lot of times that has to do with the neuroscience part of it, being able to use good words that trigger appreciation within us, even for ourselves.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you brought up the power of words, because we oftentimes don't even think about the words that we use. I talk about this a lot. Again, beating a dead horse. We have bullet points in our PowerPoint slide decks. We have strategy execution. There is just, when you stop and listen, there are so many negative, violent words. And I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Dr. Emoto out of Japan and the work that he's done with water crystals and words. Are you familiar with that?
Was that the ones in the containers and how he spoke over it? Yes.
Yes.
I'm familiar with that.
Yeah, I think
I like that.
I do too. I'm so fascinated with it. And so for our listeners who are not familiar with the work of Dr. Massimo Emoto, he captured water in containers, and I believe that he froze it to get the water individual water crystals. But he said certain words as he was containing the water, and the crystal formations were very different based on the words that were used. So for example, when he spoke love to the water, there's this beautiful crystal formation that developed. And when he said hate to the words, it was fragmented and disconnected and very unattractive in the way that the water crystal developed. And when we think about ourselves as humans being 70, 80, 90% water, I've heard all kinds of different things. You have to imagine that saying words, even saying words to ourselves, there's definitely got to be a physical impact on our bodies when we are exposed to those words of either love words, appreciative words of affirmation and love, or words of negativity and hate. So I think the words really are very, very powerful.
If I may leave you with this one concept, there is a proverb, Proverbs 18:21, that says, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they that love it will eat the fruits thereof." So our words are important, especially in leadership. If you want to motivate, find effective words that help to trigger that response that you're looking for. I was in a meeting recently, sometime last year, where someone said that their team members were lazy. And although I did not address it at that time, it left me feeling, if you're a leader, how do you communicate transparency and effective leadership by thinking that your team members are lazy? You can't do that.
No. That's heartbreaking. And unfortunately, that's still a real reality within our corporate structure. So, wow, Alicia, well, thank you so much for being part of this amazing conversation. I really enjoyed connecting with you and love the work that you're doing. I will definitely check out your book. Again, the title of your book one more time.
The Book on Forgiveness.
The Book on Forgiveness. I love it. And it all begins with forgiving yourself. And I will say I have a huge testimony of that myself, of being able to just forgive, let it go, and remain and be present and always looking towards the future. So thank you so much for being on the show today. I really enjoyed getting to know you.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Likewise, and best of luck with your dissertation. I'd love to hear more about that. Qualitative research is a thing of its own.
Yes.
So continued luck with that. So huge thank you to our producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, and USA Global TV and Radio. We'll see you next month. And as usual, I'm not prepared to tell you who's coming in February. That is, Dr. Amber. And we're going to talk about female to female violence in the workplace. So look forward to seeing you then. Thanks for being part of the Compassion Project. Remember to take care of yourself through self-compassion so that we can ignite a compassion evolution. Thanks so much. See you next time.
Ever dreamed of hosting your own TV show, sharing your story with a global audience? Now's your chance to shine. At USA Global TV and Radio, we make it easy for you to create, host, and broadcast your very own TV show. Whether you're a storyteller, entrepreneur, or industry expert, we help you bring your vision to life. With our exclusive interview, live streaming, and podcasting training, you'll gain the skills and confidence to captivate your audience. Our global platform ensures your voice is heard worldwide. Join our community of creators who are already making an impact, one show at a time. Step into the spotlight. Host your own TV show on USA Global TV and Radio. Book your discovery call today at usaglobaltv.com. Copyright 2025 USA Global TV and Radio. All rights reserved. Terms and conditions apply. To learn more, visit usaglobaltv.com. In a world full of noise, misunderstandings and interruptions, master the art of listening with Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck is the listening mentor of USA Global TV and Radio and the Amazon #1 best-selling author of Mastering the Power of Elevated Listening. Elevate your listening. Elevate your life. Join a global learning experience in person or via Zoom. Reserve your spot today. usaglobaltv.com/book-your-session or drjacqueline.thinkific.com. Join Dr. Kerbeck's listening courses or hire her to unlock deeper connections and authentic conversations. Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honored to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USA-Global-TV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dyes. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative Direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.